Yay. My Post-it note can be put away. Do that. And welcome. I'd like to start by sharing a screen with you here on Zoom. Give me just 1 second. There. So welcome to our Zoom meeting. I'd like, if you're willing, for you to please mute your speaker unless you have a question. You will find the mute button if you move your cursor down to the bottom of your screen, to the bottom left corner. You should be able to mute. I also want to alert you that down at the bottom there is a chat feature. If you wish, you may use that. Marcia was going to demo for me. A little later on, she'll send some chats to everybody. But if you have a question but you don't want to interrupt, go ahead and type it into the chat, and Marcia will let me know that it's there. Okay. So, using the Zoom meeting, I'm Betsy Lang. I'm the operations manager of the Literacy CNY. Kathy Houghton's here with us. She asked us to be here. I'm very excited about that, that we're willing to share with you what we know. And then, of course, my boss, Marcia Tate, our executive director of Literacy CNY, is here. Could we do other introductions, please? How about Christina, if you unmute and tell me who you are.
Yes. I work in Rockland County, that's at the lower Hudson Valley, and Pat Rajala is my boss.
Very good.
I manage the tutor program in Rockland County.
Perfect. Thank you.
Christina, bless your heart. I've known Pat forever.
She's quite a lady. Wow, I'm really.
She is. She's a good friend.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, great. And then Marie?
Hi, I'm Marie Heller, and I work in Rensselaer County.
Oh, sure. I grew up in Burnt Hills, so just another county away from you. Very good. And what's your position?
Student and volunteer coordinator.
Okay, very good. And then Kitty, is that you?
This is me. Hello.
Oh, very good. I'm glad to have a face to go with the name. That's wonderful.
You as well. You as well. Yes. So I am blessed to be a part of Literacy New York, and Kathy Houghton is my direct manager and guider on everything. And I love overseeing the I2O online tutor training program.
Very good. All right. Very good. Thank you. So I'm going to unshare this screen for a minute to, well, no, we'll move on, and then I'll show you another feature in a minute. So let's go to the next screen. Marcia, would you like to give an overview?
Yes, I had to find the unmute to do that. So we wanted to just tell you a little bit about how we got involved using Zoom for instruction, and 1000% of the credit for this goes to Betsy, whose idea it was. It absolutely was not my idea. She came to me about a week before we shut down in Onondaga County and said, hey, you know, we might get shut down. What do you think if I investigate Zoom to see if we could use it for instruction in case we do have to shut down? And I said, sure. You know, it was not my idea. I hadn't even thought of it. So she did that, and we'll talk in a little bit about what we ended up buying. But since that time, we had about a week before our building did shut down. We were part of SUNY, and SUNY closed everything down the week of the 15th. And we had, in fact, less than 24 hours notice when it actually happened on Sunday night. So luckily we had bought the licenses. Betsy had begun to explore how to use them. And our teachers and students in that 1 week, had begun to learn how to access it and use it. So we were a little bit ahead of the game when State Ed finally got around to saying, you can do this. We actually had our classes already up and running, and the board had approved my using other funds if New York State ended up deciding not to support this instruction, but we're really glad that they did. So we are using it for instruction. We're using it for meetings. Our team meets using Zoom, but also our board is going to meet using Zoom on the 21st. And we've had some committee meetings and also training like this. So we'll talk more about that as we go, but that's how it all happened in our program. And Betsy, I'll turn it back to you.
Very good, thank you. So I'd like to talk about what our goals will be today. Our learning goals. First, let's understand what Zoom is and what somebody needs in order to use it. We'll review the features of the Zoom meeting room. We'll briefly touch on the Zoom basic and pro plans. What's the difference? Because we had a decision to make when we decided to use Zoom. I'll give you a quick intro into scheduling a Zoom meeting. And that's a good springboard to address security concerns. I know that Zoom's been in the news recently for security reasons, but there are ways to address that, and I can talk about that. And then we'll discuss how Zoom meetings can be used by adult literacy providers. Do you have any other learning goals that you'd like to explore? Okay, I'm not getting an answer, so I'm going to move on. Oops, sorry. Okay, so what is Zoom? We are using Zoom Meeting today. Zoom is an online platform for connecting and supporting people from a distance, people who need to communicate. Zoom has several products. The products include, there's meetings, there's webinar, there's a chat feature, there's Zoom phone. There's many things that I haven't bothered to look at because we were pretty sure what we were most interested in. We wanted to be able to hold meetings and to teach our students and to keep up doing the good work we do. So today, when I say Zoom, I mean Zoom Meeting. I'm not going to be talking about any of their other products. So virtual meetings online, there are similar products. I have used Skype quite a bit because I have kids who live overseas. Then there's things I haven't used, Hangout, Messenger, GoToMeeting, and I was aware that different organizations use these things. But Zoom meetings seemed to make the most sense because it was very easy to get on and get going with Zoom, to be able to participate and to use that. I find that they have wonderful training materials. There are many, many resources. And the other thing I liked is that someone who is attending a meeting does not need to get a Zoom account. You'll be receiving this PowerPoint when we're done, and there at the bottom of this particular slide, there's a link you'll be able to click through just to get to the Zoom website. And that's what you see there. So what does a participant need to use? What do you need to be part of a Zoom meeting? Well, Zoom can be used on a computer, on your laptop, on your iPad, on your Kindle, on any of your tablets, and on your smartphone. You don't need a Zoom account to attend a meeting. So when I'm talking about people in Zoom, a participant is anybody who is participating in a Zoom meeting. We're all participants. I am the host of this meeting. I have a Zoom account, and I scheduled this meeting and gave the meeting ID information out so that people could be invited. And those people are the attendees. That's all the rest of you. You are meeting attendees. So you don't need a Zoom account to attend a meeting. If you want to attend a meeting using a mobile device, you do need to download the Zoom cloud meeting app. So when it comes time and you're encouraging people to do this and they say they want to use their phones to do it, it takes a few minutes to download that app. So that's something that you should make people be aware of, that if you want to schedule a meeting and they're going to use their phone, they can't start it at 10 o'clock. They need to have the app on their phone so that they can participate. So who does sign up for an account? The host would. I'm a host. I signed up for a Zoom account, and because I wanted to use my laptop, I downloaded the Zoom desktop client. There's several different ways to start a Zoom meeting. You can schedule from, if you set it up, you can schedule like from your Outlook calendar and things like that. But I haven't explored that yet. I find it very, very easy to just open up my Zoom desktop client and schedule from there. Do you have any questions right now about what you need to have in order to participate in the Zoom meeting?
Betsy, I actually just had an experience this morning with a student who, it turned out they have a computer at home, a desktop, but it doesn't have a camera. So you do need to have a device with a camera and a microphone to use this. And that can be a barrier for students. We're finding that most of our students who are participating are actually using their phones.
That's a good point. Now, it is possible, it's possible to hold a Zoom meeting without the video, but you miss the eye contact and the interaction, the things that make a meeting, good communication in a meeting. Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that your student that you're talking about, Marcia? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Zoom meeting features and controls. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And now I see everybody. And I want to talk about the different features we have available to us. So as you're looking at your screen, I am seeing all 6 of us. Is everybody seeing all 6 of us? Is anybody just seeing who's ever speaking? No, okay. So there's 2 different views you can have when you are using Zoom. This is called gallery view, when you see all the participants in the meeting, both the attendees and the host. Raise your hand, is everybody using a laptop or a computer rather than a mobile device? Yes, if you are. Okay, so I'm going to tell you on your laptop or computer, in the top right-hand corner, there's an icon, and it might say speaker view. If you click on that, you change the view so you are only looking at the person who is speaking. So that's an option that you have depending on what you're most comfortable with when you're in a meeting. If it's a large meeting with, right now 6 people is very manageable, but if it was a meeting of 20 or 30 people, you might not want to be viewing all 20 people at once. You might prefer just to have the speaker view so that you're looking at the person who's talking at the time. When we're in gallery view, looking at everybody right now, and I'm talking, you probably see an outline around me. And that way you know who the speaker is at any given time in gallery view. Do you see that? Do you see that there's a line of around me? Marcia, why don't you say something? Oh, sorry. Yeah, now.
Okay, I was typing something. Yes, you see how in the frame.
Right. So that's one way, if you're in gallery view, you know who the person is speaking if it's not very, very obvious. Let's see.
And I only see you, Betsy, and I'm not sure. You're up in the corner of my screen. I don't know what I did.
Okay, were you seeing everybody before?
It was before, but now I'm not.
Okay, can you, so you push something that either said like a little icon. It might look like a rectangle with some dots over it, or maybe it looks like a matrix of dots.
Well, I pushed the speaker view. He did something, but I couldn't see what he did. So now I have 6. They went horizontal, and then I think I pushed the little thing next to it, and then I think you were just up in the corner. But now I'll not touch it.
There you are again.
This
Okay.
is what happens when I do technology. Something happens, and then I don't know what I did, and I don't know how to get back to where I was.
Well, let me tell you something I found really useful. Once I got on Zoom, I would open a meeting of 1. I was the only person in that meeting. And I would just go around pushing, like finding every icon and pushing all the icons, trying to figure out what they do. And I'll have another hint later. You know, you can watch videos learning what these functions are. And I like to watch the videos and then stop them and try it in my own meeting and then moving on. So that's, for now, we'll keep going. But that's something I would suggest to you for later on.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so as you're taking your cursor and moving it around, we've looked at gallery view. And now I'm moving my cursor to the lower left side. And you can see other functions. There's one that looks like a microphone, so you can mute and unmute yourself. If you click the caret symbol next to it, you'll see there's different things you can do. You can choose what microphone you're using. You can switch out your speakers and your headphone. I find that I'm liking wearing my my earbuds. And something I always do when I start a meeting, there's one entry that is test speaker and microphone. I like to go through, I was burnt in a meeting once, so I like to go through and make sure my speaker and my microphone are working properly. Next icon over is one that looks like a video camera. I can choose to stop the video. And when I do that, I have my profile pick up. We can talk a little later about how to do a profile pick. I'm going to undo that. And when I do the arrow allowing me to do other functions, there's video settings. Marcia has used one of those video settings. She has chosen a virtual background, but because she doesn't have a green screen or some blank wall behind her, hers is a little funky. We've been trying to work out the green screen in our office between staff. One of our staff members, Doug, is really successful, and he looks like he's in a grand library every time we're in a meeting with him. Our computers say that our computer can't support that function, but if you have a blank wall behind you, you might be able to use a virtual background. Moving across the icons at the bottom, you should have an icon that is labeled participants. And there is a difference between what I see as host and what you see as a participant when I click participants. So when I click participants, I get a list of all of us, as do you, I believe. As host, there are some things I can do. I can go through and choose to mute all of you. I also, as host, can choose to make someone else the host. Or I could allow somebody to record if somebody wanted to do some recording. Or I could put somebody in a waiting room. So that's what that function does. Okay, good. And then there's chat. And so if you click the chat function, oh, this is excellent. So I hadn't looked at chat yet. I see that there's already been some conversation trying to figure out,
Yep,
you know,
we've
what's
been
going
busy,
on. So
Betsy.
that large sheet behind the wall, I don't know if that'll work or not. All my walls have stuff on them. Marcia, when you did it, it showed the green kind of went around you.
Yeah, I have a blank. I took everything off the wall and tried it, and it's just a beige wall. And I thought that would work, but it didn't. My laptop told me that I needed a green screen. We think you might be able to download a green screen somehow, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Yep.
Also, this is, you know, the reason you would do it, someone asked, Christina asked, why you would want to do that. I think it's a privacy feature. So if you don't want people to see like the inside of your home, you could figure out how to use this background. Doug downloaded this grand library, which is really fun for him because he's the teacher. And the students all think he's in a big library. So it's kind of a fun thing. But I think the real reason it's there is for privacy.
Right. So, or a video setting would be interesting too, but I'm not sure if you could run a video behind you. But what you can do is share your screen. And so I've been sharing the screen with you already when I put up the PowerPoint slides. There are options for share screen. If you were to click on it now, it would tell you that I'm pretty sure I have not enabled share screen for any of you, right? But things that you can do, you can share your screen, you can do the slideshow. There is a whiteboard feature, and you can do your iPhone or iPad too if you link somehow. So those are things you would be able to explore. I believe you all have a record button on your among your icons. That's something you can do. And then there's reactions. So if you see the reactions button down there, you can click and, oh, wow, Kathy gave us a thumbs up. This is great. So that's another way that your participants can interact with you. Now, as a host, I have a couple of more controls down at the bottom that I'd like to tell you about. One of those controls that our classroom teachers are using and our volunteers who are leading our conversation, our ESP, our English speaking practice sessions are using is called the breakout room. And a breakout room is not available to attendees. It's just the host that uses that. And I can choose to put us in smaller groups to hold discussion. Perhaps the teacher would pose a question or give group work, and we could break into groups. And then from there, as the host, I can pop into either room and see how you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Let's see, assign participants. I'm going to assign you into 2 rooms. So it asks me how many rooms do I want to put everybody in. So I'm going to say 2 rooms. I can choose to decide who's going in those rooms, or I can let it sort automatically. So I'm going to let it sort automatically. And as I look at it, breakout room number 1 is going to have Christina and Marcia and Marie, and breakout room 2 is going to have Kathy and Kitty. And so I'm going to open those rooms. Let's see. Now, are you in
Did
your
we
rooms yet? There we
decide
go.
to join? It looks like we choose to join.
Okay, good. So Kathy, why don't you go ahead? Can you join?
She
There
is.
we go.
The
Okay, so I
instructors-
popped in.
Mhm.
I'm going to, I haven't done this in a couple of weeks. I've got to remember how to pop out and see the other room, and then I'll put us all back together again.
Okay. So we have classes where we have teachers and volunteers.
Hey, there's our host. Hi.
Here I am. So I was just popping in. The only thing that bothers me about the breakout rooms is there is like a little bit of a delay popping in,
Yeah,
popping
but
out.
it's not problematic.
Well, I don't think so either. Our instructors really like it, and then our English speaking practice groups, they get, you know, they've had 10 students attend, and so they really couldn't do their work if they didn't go
Right.
into the breakout rooms. They really
Right.
like that. So
And is it pretty intuitive, pretty easy on your end as the host? It's just
well,
it's just an option.
really easy, and there is a video. Zoom has a video for everything that explains
Okay.
everything, and there's a 4-minute video that tells you how to do breakout rooms, and it's a good one. So
Yeah, I think this could be a really useful tool, the breakout
yeah.
rooms. Mhm.
I think so too. I know Kevin uses it for group work in his
And
class.
then you decide to bring us back?
Yes, so I'm going to
Okay.
click leave breakout room, and then you'll get an invitation to go back to the
To
meeting.
come back.
So
Okay,
I'm gonna
great.
do that right now.
All right, thanks.
All of this, and there she is.
Oh, that's funny. So okay, so I'm in the main session now. You guys came back.
Yeah, we did.
Very good. And I'm closing the room, so we should have Kathy and Kitty back in just a second.
Yep, there they
Here
are.
they come.
Good.
Very good. Okay,
I feel
so
like we traveled through space or something. But we're back.
Right, well, we walked down the hallway from one room into the other.
So Kathy asked me a question, and she said, is it pretty intuitive using breakout rooms for the host? And I said, yes, it is, but Zoom also has a 4-minute video on how to use a breakout room, and it's a very good video. So that's something I would recommend that you have a look at. Let's see, one last icon I want to tell you about that I have as host and you do not, and that is an icon that is labeled security. Zoom has always had security features. As I said before, they've been in the news, but now they have it for the host to click a single icon rather than having to look at the different things. And so briefly, I'll talk about this more, but I can lock the meeting, I can enable a waiting room, I can allow or disallow the attendees to chat or share a screen or rename themselves, and I can remove a participant, all right from the control bar down there. So, so does anyone have any question about the features that we have while we're in this meeting?
I want to show you one more thing. If you click on the upper right-hand side of your picture, your own face, you should have, you can mute and unmute from up there. And then you should see an ellipse, 3 dots. If you click on that, you have some other options. So for example, let's say you want to blow your nose because you have allergies, not coronavirus. So you can turn your picture off for a second and do what you have to do, and then you can come back when you're done, which I think is really useful, especially if you're on a very big meeting with a lot of people. There is something out there now called Zoom etiquette, and we had an example of a student who made a lunch and sat down and ate his lunch in front of the screen with everybody who could see, and that was probably not great Zoom etiquette. Also, the other thing you can do, and this is useful again, if you don't want to look at your own picture the whole time, you can hide self-view. And so if, for example, you're presenting like I am right now, I don't want to be watching myself talk or checking my hair or whatever, you can hit that so that you no longer see yourself. So a couple of additional tricks.
Marcia, can I just ask, did you say to click the speaker view to get those options?
No, it's in the frame with the picture of yourself.
Or where it
There
says
should be an icon to the upper right inside your frame of yourself.
stop video, rename, pin video, hide self view? Okay.
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Okay,
Very
great.
good. Okay, then I am going to move on to the next slide. So we covered, good, we covered everything on our list of the features and controls. So getting started with Zoom, what I would suggest to anyone interested in Zoom is that you attend a Zoom meeting introduction. And Zoom has a live training webinar daily, twice daily, that you can register for and attend. And so within this slide is the link. I am not going to click through to that because it's just a matter of signing up. It's a great 30-minute video that covers many, many things. I can't believe how fast they move through it. You feel like you know things when you're done. So I had mentioned before when we were talking about Zoom, you hear, oh, Zoom is free, Zoom can be free, or there's other plans. And so Literacy CNY had to decide, well, what Zoom plan do we want? So I am going to click through to Zoom pricing. And Marcia, tell me, are you seeing Zoom pricing right now?
No, it's still the slide.
Okay, give me just a second.
There it is.
There it is. Okay, good. Let me scroll it up a little bit. So Zoom has several plans, but for our purposes, we're only going to look at two. We're going to look at basic, and which is their free plan. And in the Zoom training videos, they usually start off, at least the longer ones, by discussing the benefits of the plans. And they always talk a lot about the free plan. So I never felt like we'd be missing out on a lot if we didn't choose to spend the money on a plan. There are a lot of benefits to a free plan. In a free plan, you can have a meeting that holds up to 100 participants. You can have one-on-one meetings. So why wouldn't you just get free? Well, the caveat with 100 participants or any more than 2 participants is they cut your meeting off at 40 minutes. You can still get by if you have a longer than 40-minute meeting by just everybody leaves the meeting and signs back on. That's what they actually suggest in the videos. But your time for a one-to-one meeting is unlimited. So for your tutors, a free plan would be perfect if they want to work with their student. They would have unlimited time during the course of a scheduled meeting to work together. And all of the features, all of the benefits that I've talked about, the different resources that I've said are all available to you, whether you have a free plan or whether you have purchased a license. There are video conferencing features. We have seen all these today while we're working and talking together. There's video, there's voice, there's full screen and gallery view. I've talked that we can share screens. There's virtual backgrounds. I'm sorry, let me go back and close that up. Web conferencing features. I'm going to talk to you about scheduling a meeting in a minute, and you'll find out about meeting IDs and host controls we've talked about already. So why did Literacy CNY decide to pay for a license? Well, we decided it was important to us to be able to hold meetings that lasted longer than 40 minutes. And so we chose to buy 3 licenses, 3 host licenses. We bought an annual subscription to those licenses using TechSoup. So we were able to get a nonprofit discount by paying the TechSoup administration fee. We were able to get our licenses for half off. So what I would tell you is when I kind of did the math, if we had only wanted 2 annual licenses, we would have been better off to just buy them at Zoom's regular rate. But 3 licenses was kind of the tipping point where it made more sense to pay the administration fee to TechSoup and to buy our licenses that way. So in addition to be able to have meetings that last longer than 40 minutes for a group of people, we also have user management. I am the administrator of these user licenses. I am able to do, let's see, oh, that's information. So this says I can manage the users, I can add, delete, and assign roles and add-on features. We didn't purchase any add-on features. Feature controls, let's see, I can enable and disable recording, chat, and notifications. But the important thing is that you should know when you're buying a license is that it's tied to an email account. So our instructors have Zoom licenses that are tied to their email accounts. And if you have one that you think your agency is going to share, you will have to assign a person to be the scheduler, and as Marcia calls it, the air traffic controller. So Marcia tells me we're going to have a board meeting and she wants me to schedule it. But I also know that I have scheduled our English speaking practice volunteers, and I start that meeting for them before I assign hosting abilities to them. So one person needs to be assigning and handing off the hosting for a license if you decide that you're going to share it as an organization.
Hey, can I say one thing about purchasing licenses?
Yes.
Right now, for the AIL-funded cohort, the affiliates have until May 10th to make budget amendments if they were to need to move money around so that they could move money into, purchasing Zoom licenses, or really any technology that they might need to get through, the rest of the year. I know this may not be something that people had budgeted at the beginning of the year, but they can do an amendment. You have to wait until your amendment is approved before you make the purchase. But you do have, the programs do have the ability to make amendments until May the 10th.
Okay, very good.
If I could add to that, Kathy, I did not have this in our budget, and I emailed Marisa and just said, I'd like to reallocate some of the technology budget I had. And she said, yeah, that's fine because it's within the category.
Same category, yep, that's great.
She said, just go ahead and submit the expense that way.
Wonderful.
Does anybody want to ask me any questions about the free Zoom versus the pro?
Betsy, the free would be something that if for one-to-one tutors, that it's something that the tutors might find value in if they're just meeting with their one student.
That's exactly what I would suggest to a tutor. I wouldn't try to have an agency license and share it with tutors to do their meetings. They get to control. I mean, we train them to work one-on-one, and then we say, now manage your relationship, right? And so that's part of managing their relationship with their student would be to having this Zoom account, I think.
Betsy, I had put a question in the chat box about, I tried to get into a Zoom meeting and they were asking for credit card information. Was that a scam? I wasn't sure what was happening there because it hadn't happened in a prior attempt. That's why I thought I really needed to be in this session.
So I have never had that experience, and I haven't had anyone tell me that. So it sounds like a miscue on someone's part.
Yeah. They shouldn't be asking for a credit card. If you're joining somebody else's meeting, it would be the host of that meeting who either has a free account or has bought an account and is able to host the meeting. So you should not have to provide a credit card to join somebody else's meeting. And likewise, if you're setting up your own meeting, you're either doing that within the parameters of the free account, or you've purchased a host license and you're setting it up using your host ID. So that should not be happening.
Yep, I've heard people ask me to troubleshoot a lot of different things. That's the first I've heard that. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, so that was the pricing. And then here on this slide, there's a link to how to sign up for Zoom. And we aren't going to click through to that either, but you would have access to that in the PowerPoint when we send it out. So how do you schedule a Zoom meeting? Zoom has a video that lasts about 1.5 minutes, but I thought I would prefer to actually show you how to do that. So give me just a minute. I'm going to get us. Okay. Are you seeing something that says Betsy Training?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I made an account for training purposes to be able to show you. I went in, and this took me 4 minutes to do. I timed myself. I went into Zoom and signed up for a basic account, and I filled out profile information. And so this is my profile for Betsy Training. You can see my picture here, and I want you to know that you can do this too. It's easy to change it out. You can change or you can delete and go blank. When I signed up for my Zoom account, I was assigned a personal ID meeting number. I can choose, let me see if I can move these over. I have pictures in the way. Okay. I can choose to go over to host a meeting at the top right of my screen and just click on that, and a meeting opens immediately with my personal ID number, and I can invite people from there. Well, that's you know, to me, that's a security risk. I want to make sure that every meeting I hold has a different ID number, because I don't want anyone to ever have my meeting ID number that's assigned to me and be able to drop in on any meetings I have at any time. So I'm not going to use that ID meeting when I'm scheduling. Let me scroll down, whatever. You can see there's my sign-in email, my user type. If you wonder what kind of user, on this account, I have a basic account. And again, it says I have a capacity for 100 people in a meeting, but remember, that's only for 40 minutes. Now I'm going to scroll back up, and to the left, I'm going to click on meetings. That is not where I thought I was going. Give me a sec. I think it logged me out, so give me just a second. Here we go. So here's meetings. And I populated my meetings with some fake meetings that I've signed up. I want you to know. So here are meetings that I have scheduled. I have a recurring meeting, and you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these meetings that are recurring. That's an English speaking practice group. And they all, because it's a recurring meeting, they all have the same meeting ID number. For our students, that's great. Those students who are attending that class at the same time, the same day every week, they don't have to learn a different meeting ID number every week. They can just keep logging in on the same ID number. And then here's a meeting that is not recurring. There's a Literacy CNY staff meeting scheduled, and it has its own meeting ID number. As a host, I can start the meeting right from here, or if I don't want to hold this meeting, I can delete it. But I wanted to show you how to schedule a meeting. So I'm going to go up and click on schedule a new meeting. I'm going to, let me move all of us over here. I'm going to call it staff 2 meeting, not real creative. If you want to, you can choose to add a description. And then when am I going to hold this meeting? There's drop downs for everything. I think we'll hold it tomorrow at 2:30. When you look at duration, you're putting in the amount of time, but really that meeting can last longer. If I say an hour, but you go an hour and 15 minutes, that's okay. Your meeting doesn't cut off automatically. It'll keep going. This is more of information that'll be shared with within the invitation that you send out to people. Oh, and so you can see here, because I am a basic, I have a basic plan. When I hit an hour and 15 minutes, it says that my Zoom plan has a 40-minute limit on meetings of 3 or more people, and they're giving me an opportunity to upgrade. That's so nice of them. Let's see, time zone is included. Zoom originates in the Pacific Standard Time zone. So I've noticed when they set meetings, you have to make sure that you're doing it in your correct time zone. But for us, I set a default as Eastern time. If I want to recur, yes.
Sorry, I just want to make a comment about the duration. So you will get, if you host a 40-minute meeting with 3 or more participants, you do get a 10-minute warning when your 40 minutes is about to expire, so you can wind it down. That happened to me the other day.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay, thank you, Marcia.
Yeah.
Very good. Eastern time zone, you can click if it's a recurring meeting. Here's where I was talking about. There's my personal ID meeting number. For security purposes, I want Zoom to generate a new meeting ID for me for every meeting. So that's where you do that. Meeting password. For security reasons, I want a meeting password. They generated one for me, but you can choose to type in your own password if you want. Video, well, that's one of the features I like about Zoom. So I want video on for the host. I want video on for the participants. The audio, I want it to be available for people who are either on their phone and mobile device or on their computer. So we have both. And then I have some other meeting options here. Enable join before host. That is an option. Let's see, I have a son who teaches at a university, and he uses this option because his students, especially they're learning online right now, they might want to get together and talk and have an opportunity for community before the class starts. So he uses that enable join before host. Mute participants upon entry. Enable waiting room. That's another good security feature. And record the meeting automatically on the local computer. So those are all things you can do. I'm going to click save.
Can I just ask a question? What is the waiting room?
Okay, when do I want to talk about that? Could I talk about that in just a couple minutes? Is that all right with you if we come back to that?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's my meeting. The topic is the staff meeting. Here's the date. Here's the meeting ID that was randomly assigned. It has the password that I decided to assign for it. All of my information. It says my waiting room's enabled. And then over here to the far right, copy the invitation. This is how I'm going to get the meeting information to people. When I click copy, here's everything we need to know. So they have a join Zoom meeting. This is a link. We have a password for our meeting. When your participants, when your attendees join using this link, the password is embedded in it, so they don't have to type in the password. If they choose to join another way by using this meeting ID, they will need the password. So this is the information I would copy and send to any of my meeting participants. And that's it. That's how you schedule a meeting. Let me go back to,
I have a question.
yes.
So we don't have to put the attendees' email into the Zoom system. We have to just
Absolutely not.
we copy that invitation and send it on our own in our own private email.
That's absolutely right. That's right. Any more questions about scheduling a meeting?
Betsy,
Yes.
so because I'm on my iPad and I didn't have my Google email open to the invitation, but I already have Zoom downloaded on my iPad,
Right.
I clicked Zoom, put in the meeting ID code, but I had no password. So I couldn't get in that way. So you may want to, when you send out an invitation, you may want to make sure to include the password anyway, even though you
Got
have.
it. That makes sense. Okay, that's good advice. Send both the URL and the meeting ID and password. That's good advice. Okay, so security issues. We mentioned Zooms in the news. I hope I hammered home the reason why I would choose to use the randomized meeting ID number that Zoom will assign rather than using the personal ID meeting ID rather that's assigned to my account. Password, I would always set up a meeting with a password. Okay, waiting room. What a waiting room is, when you decide to host a meeting and you schedule it, you can have a waiting room. Before attendees are admitted to your meeting, you have to admit them. It's a function, it's part of host controls. So I could look at all of your names and I could allow all of the people in the waiting room to join the meeting at the same time, or I could pick and choose who joins the meeting and leave others in the waiting room. So that's what the waiting room function is. It might not be practical if you're holding a meeting for 80 people, you know, to pick and choose, but you could scan and look maybe for people who you can't identify, people who you have no reason to think they should be part of your meeting. So that's what the waiting room function is. Or, you know, a practical way I could see Literacy CNY using the meeting room is if, like during a board meeting, if Marcia and the board have invited a guest, but they don't want this guest to join the board meeting until after certain business has been discussed, we would leave them in the waiting room and then admit them once it was time for them to join us. Any more questions about waiting room?
But the people who find out about the meeting are people you've invited.
Well,
anybody
yes.
who get in.
So the way I see it, there's a certain amount of trust that you as a meeting host have to have, that when you send out a meeting invitation via email, it's only going to go to those people.
Right.
That they aren't going to share it with someone else. So yes, that's correct.
A question?
Yes.
So just so I understand, so the waiting room before this Zoom meeting, let's say if you and Marcia wanted to chat with each other on some points to present to us, you might be together and leave us in the waiting room.
We
And
could
add
do it
us.
that way. That's one way we could do it. Yes.
But that would be an example of how the waiting room might work, where
Yes.
Right. And
that's
if,
right.
if you're in the waiting room, you get a message that says, it's to the effect of you're in the waiting room and your host will join you shortly or something like that.
Okay.
Another example of when that might come in handy, We have some students who have been sharing devices to participate. So like one student is in one class and her spouse was in the other. And so her spouse ended up joining the wrong class because he was using her device and looked at the wrong meeting notice. So if we had been using the waiting room function, the teacher could have seen, oops, that person got the wrong meeting ID. With the students, we aren't using it because it seems better just to let them join when they log on. But that's another example. I liked Betsy's idea, though I hadn't thought of it, Betsy, but you know, if we're not in person by June, we do our meeting, our annual election of officers in June at our June board meeting, and we could put the new members into the waiting room until they're elected, and then have them join. I hadn't even thought of that till you said that, Kathy. We're going to be doing that in June also for Literacy New York, so that's a thought. Then they're there and they're just waiting to be added to the meeting.
Good. Very good. Another Zoom meeting feature that the host has is lock meeting. And, you know, it didn't even occur to me to do this, but once you know that everyone you're expecting is in your meeting, you can lock the meeting so that nobody else joins in. And then finally, if you do have someone who is disruptive in your meeting, Zoom has control where the host can remove a participant. Any questions about security issues with Zoom and how to handle it? And you know, Marcia and I talked, there is a video, Zoom has a video regarding security, and I wasn't able to dig it up before we talked this morning, and I wasn't able to dig it up and get it into the slideshow, but I'll give it another shot and see if I can find it to share with you. I have it written down to do. Okay, Marcia, would you talk about using Zoom in the adult literacy program?
Sure. So as you've already heard, we decided to buy 3 host licenses so that we could assign 1 each to our 2 instructors, so that we wouldn't have to worry about scheduling issues. So they could hold their classes on a regular recurring basis without having to involve anybody else. And then we bought a 3rd host license for Betsy to use, which we are using for meetings and other things like that. And again, I want to underscore what Betsy said. If you are planning at all to buy a license for shared use, you're going to have to assign an air traffic controller, because otherwise you will have chaos. So, and we would have had chaos if we had not put Betsy in that role. So that's really important. We're using it for training today. We hope to do more of that kind of thing in the future, maybe with the one-to-one volunteer tutors to engage them more. We are using this for our English speaking practice groups, and that's been kind of fun to watch because they are all tutors. They're all actually veteran tutors. They've been around with us a long time, each one. And so they are learning the technology kind of side by side with the students and the teachers, which is, you know, a really fun social experiment to watch. And I've been really impressed with how eager they were to figure out how to do this. So that's been good. You can share documents, you can use a whiteboard, you can share your screen. There's all kinds of features like that. So it has turned out to be a very good tool for our instructors. I will say that it took them a little bit of time up front to get comfortable. So we had a week of practicing in the office before we were shut down. Then we waited another week before we started classes so that the teachers could watch some of the videos and they could go in and play with it, you know, kind of get the hang of how to do all the things that they wanted to do. So I would leave a little bit of ramp up time if you're going to think about using it for classroom use. At this point, do any of you have any questions that we haven't already addressed?
I'm wondering about, we are going to do a volunteer session, hopefully next week, and we want to show our PowerPoint. So I know I have to use the shared view screen, but I guess I'm still not sure how that all happens. How do you get two things going like that?
Well, I would tell you the good news is Zoom has a video about how to do that. You just have to take the time to view these things. But it was very easy. The other thing I found helpful was practicing sharing the screen with someone in advance. This morning, Marcia put up with me while we went through, and I'm like, can you see it now? Did I put it up? Is this the right screen? So it would be good if you find someone who can, just work with you for a few minutes to get through it and make sure you are in fact showing what you think you're showing.
And the other thing too is this is a very forgiving audience. Your tutors, everybody knows this is brand new, and for the most part, if you just say, "Oh, whoops, I didn't do that quite right," or I'm still learning this, it goes over well.
Yeah, I think that goes back to my point about how fun it has been to watch our volunteer English speaking practice group leaders learning how to do this kind of right alongside the students. There've been a number of things that was not intuitive for them at first, and and some of the students. So one of the things that has happened is, as I mentioned earlier, shared devices. So we'll be looking at someone kind of like we are right now. We have David, and David is not, because somehow your computer thinks it's David's computer or device. So the leaders would be like, I don't know that student. That's not, so it's taken a little while to work through some of that, but I think they're really enjoying it, honestly.
And with the free, it's not costing you anything either. It's not like you're wasting a resource. So I think that's important to keep in mind too.
I've found something interesting at this particular time, because we've gone through Easter and Passover. Many of my tutors have been forced into learning this from their grandchildren and children, who they were all joking about. The biggest conversation at Easter or Passover dinner was, "Grandma, unmute your microphone." So it's almost like they've been forced into the technology. And so now that you add the volunteerism, it's kind of something they're comfortable with because they see the bigger picture of staying in touch with their families.
Exactly. And I started, my family is in Massachusetts, and I started using this as soon as Betsy forced me into it, right? And I thought, well, I could talk to my family. So I had a birthday recently, and my family ordered a to-go dinner from a local restaurant. So I went and I got it, and I came home and I had candlelight and wine and dinner, and I Zoomed with my family. And so my baby granddaughter was having her bananas and pears for dinner while I was having my dinner, and we could all see each other and talk. So yeah, it's really a wonderful, it's a wonderful thing. I think it has saved all of us in this.
And I think what's kind of neat is the biggest problem usually is mute or unmute your microphone. It really is an easy to use platform. Well, I'd like to share some resources with you. Give me just a minute. I'm getting back to that shared screen. Oh, I'm sorry. Were there any more questions before I move on?
I have a comment that I'm finding interesting. As a presenter, you're coming across so clear, Betsy, in terms of the light on your face and being able to read your lips in conversation. Like, I look at myself and this lighting is very shadowy. So we should be paying more attention to how we're presenting.
I'm facing an exterior window, and I did that on purpose because it just seems to be the best light. I've been in different places in the house. Like, if the window's behind me, that doesn't work. So, as a presenter, I would, I wasn't going to clear the wall or get rid of the lamp or anything like that. But I did think about, what's going to be the best picture here. And I find facing the exterior window works out well. Don't know what it looks like at night, but during the day it works.
That's helpful because if you're teaching someone English, it's really important that your face and your
Mhm.
features and
That's right.
your mouth is not shadowed.
And that's also true in reverse. So we had a student at the first week who was participating in one of the classes, and she was sitting with a window behind her, and she was wearing hijab. So she kind of looked like, I don't know, the Blessed Virgin. We couldn't see anything of her face. We could only see this like outline of veils. It was, so I suggested to the teacher, maybe you should explain to her, she would do better if she turned around. But that is very true. Can you also explain, Betsy, I can't remember where it is, there's a feature that lets you improve your appearance.
Oh, so if you go down bottom left corner, the caret next to the video icon, and when you click that and you go to video settings, and then you need to scroll within the settings. The scroll bar is on the far right. There's one called My Video, Touch Up My Appearance. And so it might just default to that. I've been afraid to unclick it. I don't want to know what it looks like. But that's how you can touch up appearance if it isn't already done. Okay, so ready for some resources. I've said this over and over, Zoom has so many wonderful ways to learn from them. So first, I would recommend you attend one of their live training webinars, actually 2 of them. Start with the Getting Started with Zoom Meetings webinar, which takes 30 minutes. It is a live webinar, but if the times are inconvenient for you, you can also find a recorded one. Once you see that and you've had a chance to use Zoom once or twice, then go to the Zoom Meetings live webinar. It's an hour long, but you'll get a lot out of it as well. A quick start, and I'm not going to click through to any of these. Quick start article. This has many, many topics, quick starting from how to sign into Zoom to how to schedule a meeting, lots of different articles, and you can read that. It's not necessarily videos. Next item, a training reference guide. During the first video I watched, they recommended that I download it to my desktop, and I have referred to it. It's a Zoom meeting. It's a Zoom meeting reference guide. It's their best practices, and it's very helpful. Video tutorials. These video tutorials are succinct and very helpful. But my favorite ones so far have been scheduling a meeting. It's a good reminder, and it takes 1.5 minutes, that video. Meeting controls, which I watched again this morning to be ready for you. That one's about 10 minutes long. And then the video on breakout rooms is less than 4 minutes, and it's great. And that's the one that I used, where I would watch the video, then stop it, and then try whatever they were suggesting. And then general support. I will click through to this. Here we go. Zoom, their support page breaks it down into popular topics. Getting started, audio, video sharing, and meetings and webinars are the ones I come back to time and time again. I highly recommend them. Okay. Well, I'm really glad you all joined us today. Do you have any more questions?
No, thank you. This was really helpful.
Really good. Thank you so much.
Very much, very helpful. Thank you.
It's been great having you all here today. I appreciate it. We'll be sure to get the PowerPoint to you so that you can share it with anybody in your agency that you think might be interested.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you all. Thank you. Have
Bye,
a good day.
everybody.
Stay
Bye,
safe.
everyone. Be well. Yes, stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Betsy, can you hang
Yeah.
on for 1 second?
Yes.
Um,
Wait one
So-
second. Let me stop recording.
okay.